Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to episode 2 of the ISWUTT podcast. I'll say what's up to that. My name is Michael Graham. I'm going to be your host this evening, talking about a couple things, really one major thing. I'll tell you a little bit of some stories that I've had from my personal experience and a few things that I'm looking forward to. I assure you, compared to what we had discussed in episode 1, this will most certainly be a much more lighthearted episode. We're not really going to dive into anything that is tear-jerking, awe-inducing, nothing too intense. Just we're going to have a little bit of fun. So right now it is the 20th of July in 2020. And this is the time of year where one of the most exciting and fun events tends to happen. And that would be San Diego Comic-Con, one of the biggest nerd fests for comic lovers, moviegoers, superhero enthusiasts, anime junkies, cosplay fanatics, anybody across the spectrum of anything that has to do with what I guess you would call nerd culture. It's not really nerd culture anymore when it's become so mainstream. Thank you to, largely in part, to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, making it so all of these superheroes, household names, it's not just people know Spider-Man and Batman, Superman. Now people know some heroes that most people who are even into comic books maybe 20 years ago would have no idea who they are. Right? The fact that some people off the top of their head, just by seeing the movies, can tell you that the Black Panther is T'Challa and his father was King T'Chaka. It's really crazy because those are characters, like I said, people would not have known. So this year is a little bit different because of how incredible and fun 2020 has been. COVID-19 has effectively stopped San Diego Comic-Con from happening in person. So they're doing something called Comic-Con at home. So Comic-Con is very interesting because it started with a group of teenagers and a few adults came up with an idea in the late 60s, 1969. The first Comic-Con was held in 1970. 17-year-old, 18-year-old kids that really just wanted a place to meet up and to hang out with other comic book enthusiasts. And if they got a group big enough, maybe they would be able to meet some of their heroes, their mentors, the people that they idolized. You keep in mind, this is before comics were and superheroes were in the mainstream. This is when these kids, not having known them, my guess would be, spent most of their time playing Dungeons and Dragons, begging their parents for nickels and dimes and quarters to go down to the local arcade, reading comic books and really fantasizing of who they could be. Right? It's always that escapism that if you're not the 6'3", ripped to shreds jock athlete who gets the girls, you're the kid who plays Dungeons and Dragons. But when you read these comic books, you could always feel like you could escape from what the real world was. I know that was certainly me with Batman. I remember we went to go see Batman Begins, and I was with a few of my good friends in high school. I remember specifically a gentleman named Kyle Thompson, one of my really good friends growing up, and we had parked in probably a 5 or 6 story parking structure. And when we had gone out to our cars after the movie, someone had shut off the lights. And we were walking through the parking structure to our cars, dark. And this is in the evening. This is not midday. So this is probably 11:30, 12 at night. And after having seen the Batman movie, by no means were either of us badass superhero ass-kicking villains or heroes or anybody who knew anything other than to, if someone rushes me, I'm going to throw a haymaker and hopefully it lands. But we looked at each other and we said, oh man, I hope I hope someone tries to steal my wallet right now because I just saw that movie and I'm amped and I'm going to kick some ass. That's what the kids got back in the 70s, 60s, and 70s when they're reading these superhero stories. They're thinking just for even a moment, man, I could be that badass. It takes you out of the real world. So these kids get together 1969 and they decide in 1970, we are going to start our very own comic convention. One of the gentlemen, his name was Shell Dorf. And he was actually only one of two adults that started this thing. It was a majority of these teenagers, these kids from 13 all the way up to 17 that really put this idea together. But Dorf knew that if they wanted to put this on and put it on right, they would need some type of leadership. But he actually had an ace in his sleeve. And he was friends with one of the co-creators of characters in the X-Men and the Fantastic Four by the name of Jack Kirby, who had a profound comic book writing career. And little did they know that would be the start of the very first Comic-Con. And it slowly but surely grew. Some of the notable names that showed up to the second Comic-Con, you had people, Ray Bradbury was one of the author of Fahrenheit 451. I think that's 451, 452. I want to say 451. If I'm wrong, fuck it. But you'd start to get these names that would show up and people would know who they were. And for the kids that started it, this was basically the cream dream. So they're hanging out and they get to meet their idols, the people who were writing these books that they would toil over. They would wait weeks and weeks to get these new issues and they would save up all of their money, mowing lawns, doing whatever. 1995 is when they changed the name from San Diego Comic-Con to Comic-Con International in San Diego, because you were starting to get so many attendees and really legs behind this. They could open up different Comic-Cons. So you have Comic-Con in New York, you have Comic-Con San Diego, you'll have Comic-Con Dallas, you'll have international Comic-Cons. And it really started the con phase of everybody that if you have a movement, a group of people, a community that is big enough, you can open up your own con. Now you have anime conventions that are standalone for anime, even though that's a vast world in itself. You have WonderCon, Dragon Con, and probably my personal favorite in Seattle, SakuraCon. It's a Japanese con. And they have a really funny commercial. If you check out YouTube, it's a bunch of people sitting in this sushi restaurant, and each of them starts going back and forth, and they just say what they love. They say, "Oh, if you like sushi," and the sushi chef, this is probably going to get me canceled here. "Oh, get you too, Sakura-kana." And then this white girl turns and she goes, "I love anime, and I love manga. I love Japanese characters. I love samurais." And then this kid, for some reason, is dressed all goth at the end of the bar. He goes, "Garugamesh," which is apparently it's a Japanese hardcore band. So go watch the commercial. Cringy does not do it justice. So this really opened up the world of cons to people. So that's a little bit of how Comic-Con had started. And this is going to be the first year since 1970 where Comic-Con was not held in person. So they're going to be doing something called Comic-Con at home due to the COVID. And that's why this episode will be passionately titled COVID-Con 2020. All right, I'm going to be right back. And then what we're going to do in just a few moments is we're going to actually go over some of the itinerary that is going to be at this year's Comic-Con, some things that I think are worth looking into. And I'll tell you a little bit about the time that I got to go into Comic-Con, and I had one of the best weekends of my life. We'll be back. I'll say what's up to that. All right, very well. Welcome back. Thank you very much for sticking around. I know that break was 3 or 4 seconds, and if you left in that meantime, well, what the fuck you think you're doing? We're just getting to the good stuff. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience at Comic-Con. It was 2017 when I phoned up my brother and I said, he lives in San Diego, not too far from the convention center. I said, hey, what are you doing this weekend? If you don't have any plans, I'm not going to be too much of a bother. Do you mind if I come and crash at your apartment for Friday night, Saturday night, and I'll go home Sunday, so 2 nights. And fortunately, he didn't have anything really going on, and he said, come on over. I'll fold out the futon. We can go out to some bars, have a good time. You can meet some of my buddies. We'll, spend one of the nights, and we'll go out. You can meet my friends and go to the club, whatever, what you do. So I drive down there, not having any ticket or any way in to this Comic-Con. The way that they do the tickets is a little bit, it's difficult if you've never been, because if I have a ticket to Comic-Con, a pass for this year, then when they go on sale next year, because I'm previously in, I then get priority when I'm signing up in order to get tickets. So you don't really see too much turnover in terms of people that are not attending that had dibs, because the passes really are hard to come by. And you'll even see people, if they can't make it to the convention, they'll still purchase the tickets knowing that, hey, I can miss a year, but I still need to buy in order to keep my name in the hat for priority. I'll miss this year, come back the following year, maybe even the year after, whenever I need to, because they come at a premium. So it's difficult to get these tickets. However, the one thing about Comic-Con, especially in San Diego, with the fact that it blew up the way that it did, in years, hundreds of thousands of people swarm the Comic-Con San Diego Convention Center right there in downtown. Because of that, they shut off a lot of the major streets in Gaslamp, and they can't fit everything inside the convention center. So there's a lot of, I think the term that they use is activations. Basically, it's pop-ups for various different things that are not inside the convention. So even not having a ticket to get into the convention center, you can still have an absolute blast. There's no shortage of things to do. You never know if you're going to run into a celebrity that's doing a live from Comic-Con. You never know if you're going to see someone who is in a stunning cosplay. You never know who's going to be giving out goodies and giving out swag. And that's going to play into my story a little bit here. So I get down on a Friday, and it's not even the proper term, is itching to get downtown. As soon as I parked my car, my brother says, hey, come on up, see the dog. I'll show you where you're staying. And I kind of brushed him off, and I said, man, I'm eager to get downtown. Fortunately, I had a pass that would provide me with unlimited Ubers while I was in San Diego. So I didn't have to move my car. Parking would have been an absolute nightmare, and it would have been massively expensive. So I could leave my car at his carport, and I could just call and get an Uber. And it was all paid for because I had this commuter card through my work at the time, which was pretty klooch. So I got to use that all weekend, and I didn't have to pay for Ubers. It would have been, I'm sure, surge at all times, hundreds of dollars for those Ubers back and forth multiple times a day to different venues, to different places where I was going to meet anybody. So fortunately, I get down there and I stumble upon this, I guess it's an Irish pub. It was a pub of sorts, and they had an outdoor patio where you could sit on the railing and you could overlook the street. And it was the perfect location for people watching. So I got there early enough where the patio was not completely booked. I think the rule was, if you were going to be sitting on the patio, you had to buy 3 drinks an hour, something along those lines, because they had to make sure that they were actually making money, because people would just sit and stare and sit and stare. And hey, there's a cool cosplay. Hey, there's a minor celebrity. Hey, there's a girl in scantily clad outfit that I want to ogle. People do that while they're down there because it is an event, to say the least. So as I was sitting there, I was enjoying some drinks. I had some munchies. I think it was some chicken wings, some quesadillas. They had little bites. It was great. Nothing too much, nothing too small. It was just enough to keep you going through the hours. And this gentleman sits next to me. And he says, "Oh, I'm a San Diego local, and I've been here every Comic-Con for the last 20 years." But he never buys tickets. And I said, "Well, then what the heck do? You just kind of sit and watch?" He said, "No. The trick is when you're at the end of the day, you can tell based on the pass that somebody has around their neck if it's a weekend long pass, if it's for one day, because you can buy them for specific days. So not everybody buys the pass and they have access all weekend. Some people might buy Thursday only, Friday only, Saturday only, a combination of a few of the days, whatever they can get their hands on. But for the luckiest of the few, they get Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They get the full pass." So he said, "What you do is you wait about an hour, maybe two, until they're closed for the day at about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. And you go and you wait by the exit. And you notice whose has the same colored pass that is good for that day and that day only. So it'll have a bright blue banner on the top of it. So this year specifically was The Walking Dead. So it had a picture of Rick Grimes with a battle axe with bloody face. And it would have a different colored banner on the top when they're wearing it around their neck. And you could see this is good for Thursday only. He said, "What you do is you wait. When somebody's coming out and they have a Thursday only pass, they're only there for an hour. They're not going to be using that again." And you just say, "Hey, do you mind if I have your pass so I can go in and I can see what's there?" And I said, that is a crazy thing to do. I would have not thought about that. My theory was to sneak in, you go to the exit, and if you turn around and you walk backwards, you can just sneak right in because security is going to be so busy. They don't care which direction you're going. They just care which direction your face is facing. So needless to say, that did not work. So then my plan to get into Comic-Con, it was kaput very quickly. So I get this guy's number and I say, that is very cool. Have a great time doing that. I don't really have the stones to go stand outside and pester people. I don't really want to be that person. I don't want to be bothering people when they're having a great time trying to get a free hand-me-out, considering they were the ones who went through the wait times on the website. They paid the money. I didn't want to be that guy. But I get his number and I say, "If you find any goods, let me know." And lo and behold, he sends me a text message and he says, "Hey, I got a pass. And I actually have to go meet my wife right now. So if you're interested, I can meet up. I'll give it to you, but you're only going to have about 30 minutes inside because they're closing down. It's not enough time to do anything." So needless to say, I sprint as fast as I can, meet the guy, go into the Comic-Con hall, get in there, and I only had enough time to go around the main merchandise hall. And I actually found a really cool Rick and Morty shirt. It kind of looks like a beer logo and says, "Let's get riggedy wrecked, son." It was Swifty Ale. Very, very funny if you like Rick and Morty. So I picked up the shirt, and then by that time they were starting to close down. I was a little bit bummed because I didn't have enough time to even see a quarter of the merchandise, let alone see what was going on in the other panels and the halls and the comics and everything I had dreamed of for so long. I had to go because time was running out. So I leave, and my brother calls me and he says, "Hey, if you're interested, we are going to go to my friend's house. We're going to have some drinks, and then we're going to go downtown to one of the bars that we know. We know the bouncers, we know the bartenders. It's going to be completely slammed, but we're regulars. We know these guys. So we'll be able to have a good time." So I said, "That's fantastic. Let's do it. So I'm wearing my awesome Rick and Morty t-shirt that I just got. And as I was walking through the crowd, I see this guy come out from almost like a side alley, and he's holding a bunch of bags. And he says, "Who wants them?" And I just happen to be standing 5-10 feet away from the guy. So I run up and I say, "I would love one of these bags." So he gives me a goodie bag and I go on my way. Started inspecting what was inside the goodie bag. And it was about the time the movie, maybe a little later, Star Wars Rogue One had come out. And when I looked inside the bag, there were a bunch of limited edition action figures for Rogue One, a lot of the characters that were in that movie. And I thought, this is really cool, but I'm not by any stretch of the imagination one of the biggest Star Wars fans in the world. I'm just a guy. Star Wars is okay. It's cool. It's fun. It's not for some people, they live and breathe Star Wars. I'm more Lord of the Rings. Do I respect it for what it is? Of course, but is it my number one? No. So I go and I meet my brother. We have a great time, meet his friends, and then he says, "All right, well, it's time to go. Time to go out." So we go from his friend's place down to this, I forget what it was called. I think it was called like Saltwater Tavern Bottoms, something. It was a really cool bar. And I realized pretty quickly that when these guys go out together, they go out with the intention of meeting young ladies, getting phone numbers, and hopefully some more. That's not really my style, especially if I'm in town for Comic-Con. I'm not there to try to meet some girl and shack up. I'm there to have a good time and meet people that are like-minded, that like same movies and comics and music and whatever, and we share common interests. So one point in the evening, I don't remember the name of the gentleman, but he was one of my brother's friends, and he says, "Hey, I bet you can't go get that girl's number. And if you do, I'll buy you a drink." And I said, "You know what? You're on. Let's do this. I'll give it a shake." So I walked up to this young lady who was standing at the bar, and I said, "Hey, my name is Michael. I'm going to be very honest with you right now. I was kind of put in a weird spot. I don't normally do this, but I was talking to someone in my group of friends over here, and he said, if I come talk to you and I get your number, he'll buy me a drink. So what do you say you give me a bogus number? I'll go back and say, oh, I got the digits. And then when I go back, I'll do a fake phone call, hold it up to my head. When you see me pointing at you, pick up your phone like it's ringing, and it'll work." And she said, "That is fucking hilarious." So she agreed. And I did get the free drink. And then when I went back over to her and kind of started talking to her a little bit more later in the evening, I noticed she had a Rebel Alliance tattoo on her forearm. And I said, "Hey, you know what? I got something a little bit earlier that I think you would enjoy. You would get much more enjoyment out of this than I would." So I gave her the Star Wars figurines that I'd gotten earlier. And she was just through the roof about it. She was so excited. She's, "Oh, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to." I said, "But you also didn't have to play along with my stupid shenanigans to try to get a free drink off of some guy I'm probably never going to meet again. But, here we are." And then she and I actually started talking for a while. She was very nice. So she's married, lives in New York, and she actually is one of the set photographers for a popular show on FX called The Strain. So when I was talking to her, she said, "Yeah, my boss was supposed to be here all weekend, but he got called back because he's the head of photography for the show, and he has to go back and do some shots and this and that, so he can't be here." And I said, "Oh man, that's kind of a bummer because I'm sure it would have been a fabulous event." And she said, "Yeah, like who are you here with?" And I said, "No, I'm just here with my brother. I'm here by myself. I'm at the bar with my brother, but I don't have any reason to be here other than I just wanted to be a part of it and see the spectacle and have a great time." And as the night started winding down, she was hanging with her friends. I was with my buddies, and the place started emptying out slowly but surely. And at the end of the night, before she gets in the Uber or whatever she was doing when she was leaving, she came up to me and she said, "Michael, hey, like I said earlier, these Star Wars figurines, really, it does mean a lot. You didn't have to do that. This is very cool of you. But I need you to promise to me that you know how to not make a fool of yourself." And I said, "Okay, sure. Weird request, but okay." And she said, "Well, here's the deal. I told you my boss had to go back. He had to go back to work. So I have his pass. And I need you to promise me that you don't, if I give this to you, I need you to promise that you're not going to go inside and make a fool of yourself, because then they're going to look at the name and realize you're not him. And then I get in trouble. You get kicked out. He gets in trouble. We probably get fired. We're banned from Comic-Con. We can't come back. How are we going to do our job? Don't be an asshole." And I thoroughly agreed. I said, no, like this is going to make my life if you give me that pass. And then she handed over the pass. And when I was looking at it on the back, it said press. So it had a credential on the back of it. So I essentially went in, and because I was a part of the media, I didn't have to wait for anything. I got to go in a separate entrance. When people were standing for hours in this line, I just went up and I showed them my badge and they said, right this way. So I was able to, over the weekend, get into some of the panels. So really at Comic-Con, the two major places you really want to go would be Ballroom 20. And Ballroom 20 is where they do all of the panels for the really big up and coming TV shows. So you get like the Flash show, you'll get the DC, I think it was called Legends of Tomorrow. You'll get Arrow, you'll get the Green Lantern, or not the Green Lantern, was the Green Arrow. So you'll get all of these really cool events that you can see for when it comes to the TV show. But the real big dog is called Hall H. And this is where you go to see the cast of Game of Thrones. This is where you get to see the entire cast of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is where you get to go see Ben Affleck as Batman and Henry Cavill as Superman, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman doing their panel talking about their projects. It's the big time. People would camp out in front of Hall H from Tuesday or Monday night for a full week just to get in to see these 30-minute hour-long panels. I get to walk in, no questions asked, and I went and I sat in the press box. And it was so funny because I went into Ballroom 20 and I was hungry. So I had a plate of nachos, I had a hot dog, I had a drink. And I go and I sit in the press box and everybody's feverishly typing on their laptops because you can't record the video, but you can live blog it as it's happening. So I got to go and see in Ballroom 20, I got to go see the Supergirl panel. I got to see the panel for the Flash. I made my way over to Hall H. I got to see the panel for Netflix's Stranger Things. So I got to see all the kids up there, the directors, all the actors talking about what's going to be going on in the next season, in season 3. What are we in store for? I got to see Westworld, which I thoroughly enjoyed Westworld season 1. And then the Marvel Studios MCU, I got to see them announce Black Panther, Thor Ragnarok, and we got to see the teaser trailers that were premiered then at Comic-Con. And it was electrifying. Electrifying is how I would have to describe that audience. One of the coolest experiences of my life. So that's my take at Comic-Con. Had a great time. So, like I said, this is going to be the first year since 1970 that they're not doing Comic-Con in person. So it's all going to be at home. It's going to be free starting this Thursday, running all the way through Saturday. You get to see everything. Actually, I think, and let me look at the programming schedule right here, actually starts Wednesday, July 22nd, goes all the way through Sunday. So everybody can view and see what they have. Now, this year is a little bit interesting, like I said, because it's not in person. So I'm going to talk about that coming up. Thank you for listening to my story, my 18 and a half minute Comic-Con story. I probably could have just said I met a girl and she gave me a pass, but I wanted to lay the land. I wanted you to see and feel what I saw and I felt. All right, I'll be right back. All right, very well. Welcome back. So now, since we talked about the history of Comic-Con, I told you some of my experiences there. Now they're doing Comic-Con at home. As mentioned previously, open to everybody. So if seeing the panels and what's being announced, you were prohibited by getting tickets, this is your year, because you're going to get to see Comic-Con in all its glory. I'm just kidding. Not in all its glory, for a couple reasons. One, it's at home. So while you still get to see the panels, that's only a portion of why Comic-Con is such a fun time. It's the atmosphere. It's being in jam-packed, crowded lines, people eating incredibly overpriced food, having incredibly overpriced drinks. But this year, there's also a few things that are missing that make Comic-Con that fun. First and foremost, DC Comics. So DC will not be largely at Comic-Con this year. They announced that they're going to be doing their own con. Maybe not even a con. Maybe it's going to be their own moment to premiere everything DC wants. So they're going to be doing something. It looks like it's going to be August, late August. It looks like the 22nd. It says no badge required. It's going to be called the DC Fandom, a global experience. That's how they're taglining it. So it looks like it's going to be on a Saturday on August 22nd. It's going to start at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Looks like it's going to be a full 24 hours. So because of DC's fandom, a global experience, they're not actually going to be premiering anything at Comic-Con. So that's going to be one major player off the list for a lot of people. There's a couple things that DC has in the works right now that I'm quite excited for. I can't wait for the second Wonder Woman movie. 1984 is going to be a blast. The Snyder Cut is another thing I think a lot of people are waiting for to see if he can redeem what was the subpar, some would call it garbage fire. I would say it was okay. It was not great. It was not awful. It was a movie that was the Justice League. So we'll just sit and wait and see what DC has to offer at the end of August. So who knows? It could be cool. It could not be. It's going to be their first time really trying their own thing. So like I said, Wonder Woman, you have the Batman that's going to be coming out with Robert Pattinson. I've seen some stills from that. Looks pretty cool. Black Adam starring The Rock, the Suicide Squad. And then, like I said, the Snyder Cut of the Justice League. The Flash, rumored to get his own movie. We'll see. Next up, not to be attending, Marvel Studios. Big deal. Big deal. So you got two of the big home run hitters not going to be there for their regularly scheduled Hall H panel. Very curious because I know Marvel has a handful of things that are up and coming. Falcon and the Winter Soldier getting their own movie. I know it's WandaVision. I don't even think we have trailers for those. I think they had announced the titles and we haven't really seen anything else. But it seems they're going to be doing their own thing as well. I'm looking at this article that was written. The website is literally itsallmarvel.com. And they wrote this whole article about how Comic-Con is going to be so great this year. Hall H is going to be jam-packed. And then at the very bottom, it says on the July 7th deadline, less than 2 weeks ago, reported Marvel Studios will not be participating in Comic-Con's at-home virtual event. So that leads me to believe they're going to be doing their own thing. So that's going to be two of the major hitters. Like I said, home run hitters, if you will, if you're into baseball. Touchdown catchers, soccer goal scorers, three-point shooters. That's how you could describe those companies, but they're not going to be there. That doesn't mean that Comic-Con at home is going to be a complete bust, because I was looking at the entire itinerary and there were a few things that I was able to pull out that I specifically will be watching for this coming weekend that piqued my interest. I'd seen they're doing some stuff with Star Trek. I haven't really been, not the biggest Trekkie. Maybe it's the sci-fi thing I don't totally love. I'm not in love with Star Wars, not totally in love with Star Trek. My dad will probably kill me if he hears this. I used to have a shirt that he gave me that said "Sit long and prosper," instead of "Live long and prosper," and he got that from a Star Trek movie marathon with his friend Bill Aspie a long time ago. There's a cartoon from one of the creators, maybe both of the creators of Rick and Morty, called Solar Opposites, which is a Hulu original. It's actually really fun. I watched that season, the first season, in maybe a day or two. And it initially starts as just kind of a goofy cartoon. Actually has some really good narrative to it. There are some things that happen, and it's almost like you're hearing two stories at once, the story of the aliens and the story of those in the wall. It'll make sense if you watch it, so go check it out. So they're going to be doing their own panel for Solar Opposites for season 2, exclusive look at season 2. Had a great time with that. Let's take a look. So the New Mutants is going to be having their own panel, And that's going to be taking place. Let's see, what day is this going to be? This is going to be Thursday, the 23rd. So this coming Thursday. And that'll be at 2 p.m. Pacific time. The New Mutants is something I think was initially, they'd shown the teaser trailer for this in 2017, maybe 2018. I'll have to look it up. It was years ago. And it looked interesting because this is going to be set in the kind of the X-Men realm. And it looked a little bit dark. It looked like almost it was these young teens being held against their will in some type of an asylum, and they're trying to learn their powers and get out of this situation predicament they're in. We haven't seen much of it. I know it's starring Macy Williams. She was Arya Stark in the Game of Thrones series, so she's kind of writing that role directly into another major title. That'll be really cool. But once again, we don't really know too much other than it seems that these characters are trying to get out, and it looks dark. It looks more like a horror than anything. I'm very curious to see how that plays out. So we'll wait and we'll have to see that. Oh, man. This next one, I'm so excited. The Boys. If you haven't watched season 1 of The Boys, go sign up to Amazon Prime right now and throw it on. This was a show that I think was another one that took me maybe 2 days to get through the entire first season. It ends on a cliffhanger, Grand Canyon cliff level. But it has Carl Urban, who I really liked in Judge Dredd, the remake of Judge Dredd. He was very cool in that. And then you have a character named Billy Butchers, who he plays, who basically it's a world as if superheroes were run by corporations. So Coca-Cola presents Superman, right? Taco Bell presents Taco Man. I don't know who to put in there. Right? So they explore the world if these superheroes were essentially celebrities. And it turns out they're not really that good of people. They put on the front. Turns out they're actually pretty bad. The first 20 minutes of episode 1 will have you captivated. And it was, for me, it was 10 p.m. I'll watch an episode and I'll go to bed. Didn't sleep that night. Dragging ass the next day at work, but I had to see what happened. So season 2, watching the teaser trailer, it looks more bloody, more gruesome. Exactly what we want from season 2 of The Boys. That panel is going to be so fun. So Jack Quaid is one of the actors who plays one of the main characters, Huey. He said, in quotes, he said, just wait. He said, no one is ready. Really, no one. And that gives me belief that this is going to be fantastic. Very, very cool. Let's see, what else do we have? For those that are still fans of the AMC's Walking Dead universe, you have Fear the Walking Dead coming up on 6 seasons, and The Walking Dead. They're both going to be, looks like, on Friday, the 24th, in the afternoon, starting at noon Pacific time. I don't know if people are still into that. They're still making them. I'm assuming they are. The Walking Dead had a few really good seasons of viewing. Fear the Walking Dead was okay. Had a few really fun episodes. Season 1 I haven't kept up. I don't want to spoil this. If you have a great time with it, enjoy it. Lost me a while ago. Looks like more on the animated front, you have Bob's Burgers and Archer. Both going to have panels on that Friday. Let's take a look for Saturday. Looks like we have a couple more. We have The Simpsons. Really? The Simpsons still. It looks like they're going season 32 is what they're gearing up for. And just as we thought it would all be over soon. More Simpsons. I think it will. There are 2 things on Saturday I'm really looking forward to. One is going to be Bill and Ted Face the Music. Yes. The long anticipated 3rd installment of the Bill and Ted Excellent Adventure, Bogus Journey. Let's see if time keeps up with these guys. I'm sure it's going to be fun. I think at this point, Keanu Reeves has a level of star power that if he didn't read the script and he wasn't going to have a great fucking time making this. or he was going to come out with a kick-ass product. I don't think he would do it. So he will be there at the panel. So they say. So they say. So we'll have to check that out. And it looks like Kevin Smith is going to be hosting that panel. So what a great individual to be hosting. That'll be a lot of fun. And really, the two last things is a show that I have been watching and I, quite frankly, can't get enough of. It is called What We Do in the Shadows. And it is the story as if vampires were currently alive in our day and age, and they can't quite adapt to what it is to be in our time. They're in New York City, and they just can't figure it out. It's a really fun blending of the supernatural world of vampires and zombies, werewolves, and they throw that perfectly into what is the world here today. What would it be like if there were vampire hunters and vampires and ghoulies and goblins and warlocks and apparitions and ghosts and all kind of things? It would be a great time. So what we do in the shadows with Matt Berry, one of my favorite actors. So get a chance, go check out What We Do in the Shadows. I have to say it that way for some reason because that's how Matt Berry speaks. He's fantastic. And the final thing that I kind of want to just cover really quick, and I'm not too sure, I haven't seen much about this, but it has my interest piqued. It's called HBO's coming out with something called Lovecraft Country. And it seems it's going to be a 1940s, 1950s series. And it is going to have a lot of elements from the Lovecraftian lore. I'm sure most of you are aware of the almighty Cthulhu and the mythos behind that, but it seems like it's going to be a lot of occultists, a lot of old magic trying to be summoned back to the world to potentially destroy humanity as we know it. And those loyal to these monsters, to these beings, may be spared. Who knows? But it's going to have be produced by Jordan Peele and J.J. Abrams. Very, very cool. Man, that's going to be a blast. So keep an eye out for what's going to happen this weekend. If you don't have time to sit down and watch everything from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, there's going to be recaps all over the place. Once again, no DC, no Marvel. Two big players not going to be there, but that doesn't mean there's not enough fun for everybody else. One thing I'm curious about is what are they going to do for merchandise? That would be really, really cool if they had a digital merchandise floor where you could go and you could buy some of the merch. So at least these vendors, it's very possible some of these vendors that make custom figurines, make custom artwork, they might make a lot of their money for their whole year at Comic-Con. Cosplay pieces, that kind of thing. So it would be a total shame if because of COVID, we're not able to participate and assist these people who are trying to run their businesses. You know, we want that. We want that. We want business to succeed in these circumstances. I think it'll be an interesting look to see how Comic-Con fares, because this weekend could set the precedent for the other cons that I was mentioning earlier in the episode. So keep an eye out. I think that's about it for me. There's a lot going on here. Thank you for being here. Episode 2 ISWUTT Podcast. I'll say what's up to that. If you have any suggestions, anything you want to hear about, please do not hesitate. Email me. I'll say what's up to that at gmail.com. You can hit me on Instagram at ISWUTTPodcast, ISWUTT podcast. So go ahead and hit me on that. If you guys have any topics, anything you want to discuss, anything I omitted, I'm always willing to make corrections and retractions on a future episode by all means. But thank you for being here with me, listening to my stories. A little bit more lighthearted this week, right? I don't think we covered anything too heavy. Anyways, I'll say what's up to that.